Morning. So, I gave everybody a challenge last week. How many of you, and by show of hands, or maybe not by show of hands, just think about it, did anyone carve out 15 minutes of their week that you said you could do? Remember, everybody said they could do it. I know you did. I heard you. Did you carve out 15 minutes of your week to read the book of James? Not only did I figure out that it was 15 minutes when I read it out loud, I even listened to the really slow reading guy on Bible Gateway this week, and it was 13 minutes. That's all he took. And he reads slow, and there are weird pauses. But even if you're driving your car and that's your thing, you can turn that on if you have a phone that can access the internet, and you can listen to someone else read the book of James to you. So, last week I gave you the James challenge. What I want you to do, you don't have to do it, but it's a good thing to do. Well, I love the book of James, and I suggest you take some time. Read it once a week. Think about what stuck out to you and write it down. I know I did that, and I would encourage you to do that. Did anyone else actually post anything? I know I saw one. Anyone else? Cool. Okay, yeah. I saw Carol comment on mine. That's cool. Do #James Challenge. Do that. It'd be awesome. I'd love to see what you have to say about it. Or even if you don't post anything, it's not about that kind of recognition. Just reading the Bible and going, this is how this applies to my life. It's an amazing thing. So I just encourage you to do that. I know you guys said you can. I know you can find 15 minutes. All that I'm asking of you, all that I'm asking of you is find 15 minutes and read it. Okay, let's pray and then dive into our text this morning. God, I thank you so much that we're able to come to you. Lord, I pray that as we open up the book of James, as we look at what James has to say, that you can make it meaningful and impactful in our lives. I pray that this morning, as we talk about some pretty heavy stuff, that you would give us clarity and wisdom. Give us wisdom as we look to your scripture. It's in Jesus' name we pray, Almighty God. Amen. So, remember, last week we talked about the who, what, when, where, why, and how of James, the 5 W's and 1 H, and that kind of helps us get a picture of why are we studying this book. And one of the things that's important is the why. Why was James written? Remember, James was written to give wisdom and practical advice to Christians living everyday normal lives. I may have wrote something different. This is the essence of what I was trying to get at when I wrote that. James was written to give wisdom and practical advice to Christians living everyday normal lives. Because he does it, and I like this, because I've spent a lot of time in a Bible college and then seminary, which I am finishing up currently. You get a lot of times in seminary really great theology, really deep understandings of Scripture. But James is he's past that. He's done with that. He says, let's just do life. Let's talk about life. That's hard enough as it is. We'll worry about theology. Theology is important. That's an important thing. We need to love God and know Him more deeply. But let's just start with just practical stuff for everyday life. And I enjoy that in James. So we have some pretty practical and understandable stuff in James, but that doesn't mean it's easy. When James starts hitting on his commands and giving commands to the people, it's not easy what he asks you to do. I'm not going to let you think that they are, but they help us. They help us in our everyday life. They help us as we live life in the world. These commands will help us. So, I'm going to ask you to do something for me. I'm going to ask you to think about a time in your life that was very difficult. A time in your life that was a struggle to get through. A trial, trouble, temptation. What is it for you? I want you to get really focused and really clear about what that is. It could be something you're going through right now. It could be something you went through years ago. You know my story. You know sort of where I put my finger on what was my trouble, what was my trial. Things that have come up. Things happen recently around us that may overturn those older things. But think of a time that makes you go, man, that was tough. That was difficult. That was hard to live through. You've had those times. I know you have because I have. And I know you have because you're human. That's the world that we live in. That's the life that we have. We're in a fallen world with its fallenness all around us. We feel it. We feel the pain that brings. So I know you've got a time like this. I know you have struggles. We're going to have struggles. We're going to have trials. We're going to have tribulations. And so what James says about those things should inform how we live in them. What we're going to be talking about this morning is what James says about those times that make you wish this world wasn't fallen, those times where you are in pain and trial and tribulation. So open up. We're in James chapter 1 verses 2 through 8. James chapter 1, verses 2 through 8. Consider it a great joy, my brothers, whenever you experience various trials, knowing that the testing of your faith produces endurance. But endurance must do its complete work, so that you may be mature and complete, lacking nothing. Now, if any of you lacks wisdom, he should ask God, and it will be given to him, who gives generously to all without criticizing, and it will be given to him. But let him ask in faith, without doubting. For the doubter is like a surging sea, driven and tossed by the wind. That person should not expect to receive anything from the Lord. An indecisive man is unstable in all his ways. What we have here is a very tough teaching. The very first command in James. Consider it all joy when you face various trials. And then it switches gears right in the middle of it. What is going on in this passage? What is going on in this text? I want us to remember that so let's look at it. I want us to remember, as we think about the author of the text, as we think about James, as James wrote, he knows a thing or two about life, especially about trials. Remember that James is leading a movement. He's the current president of the movement, with a founder who was tortured and executed as an enemy of the empire. That is where James is leading. He's leading a movement like that. Moreover, one of the dearest friends and closest disciples of the founder was killed by the state. Followers of the movement were persecuted so greatly that they fled out of their city, out of Jerusalem, because the persecution was so great against the church. And they left their homes and their families, and they had to go to the countryside. And it was not uncommon for fellow Jews, like a man by the name of Saul of Tarsus, to get so riled up at what they're teaching, that the Messiah had come, that they would be stoned to death, which is against the law. I mean, it's against Roman law for them to stone people to death. But Saul says, I don't care what the empire says. Even though the empire already killed the founder of this movement, I'm going to break their rules so that I can persecute them. So I can see them die. That's the pain, that's the torture, that's the trial that the church is going through. When James is talking here, when James is saying, whenever you face trials, he's not saying, hypothetically, if a trial comes your way. He's not saying, maybe someday you will have something bad happen to you. He's saying, when it happens, when inevitably a trial comes into your life, because Jesus had it, James, the son of Zebedee, had it, Stephen had it, I had it. When the trial comes, consider it joy. Why can we consider it joy? How can we do that? Well, this is what he says. Because faith, when tested, produces endurance. Endurance, it's not that this happens like, if you're tested, you may sometime get endurance. It's when you're tested. It's the inevitable goal of the testing is endurance. A tried, tested, and a proven faith. A faith that withstands trials. A faith that withstands the pain of these troubles. A faith that withstands the agony of temptations. That kind of faith, the faith that can endure those things, it leads to endurance. But is endurance worth it? It seems like, okay, well, those are some pretty terrible things that James has been through. Some pretty terrible trials and temptations. Is endurance worth it? Yes! James is saying not only will you be mature and complete, he talks about you'll be mature and be complete, you'll lack nothing. That's in our very text today. But later on, he says this in James 1:12. Blessed is the man who perseveres under trial, who endures. The same word there is for endure. The one who endures under these trials, under these tribulations, under these troubles. For once he has been approved, he will receive the crown of life, which the Lord has promised to those who love him. Beyond that, later on in the book of Revelation, the messages to Ephesus and Thyatira in that book, both churches are blessed because they have endured under trial, endured under pain, endured under tribulation. In all those churches, those who remain, it's those who overcome, those who have stand victorious on top of the world, those who have not fallen away are the ones who receive all these wonderful blessings, the crown of life, a new name, become a pillar in the house of God. That's what's going on here. When we see here, it says endurance, that when your faith is tested, endurance will be produced within you. That means that you'll receive a crown of life. The crown of life that is everlasting life. That's what's happening here. And no, it's important that we have a quick little sidebar here. This does not mean that all suffering that happens into us is brought on us by God. There's really bad things that really evil people do. Horrible, wicked things by horrible, wicked people that may happen to you or may happen to other ones around you. And it's not that God is going, I wanted that to happen so that you could be endured, so that you could endure. Instead, what God does is he takes those things that wicked, evil people do, the free will that they have to hurt you, to hurt others around you, and he can make it work for good. He can take a broken and fallen world and turn it into something beautiful. He can renew something as a mosaic that is broken. He's not bringing the pain himself. It's just an important sidebar. Because some of you have felt pain, and you hear me say you have to endure, and you're thinking, why would God do this to me? I don't know if he did. I'm not saying that he did. What I'm saying is that God will help you endure it in the midst of brokenness and pain. The major point that I want to stress as we get through these first few verses is that facing trials develops endurance, and endurance will make us become mature, and it will help us receive the blessings of God. That's what endurance, persevering, sticking with God, staying true to him, staying true to what he calls you to do, obeying him in the midst of pain and trials and tribulations, allows us to be in a place to receive blessings from God. Can I get an amen? Following along. Good. And then we have that in our minds. And then James seemingly switches gears really hard. He likes to do that. Just changes out, goes to a different place. He says, does anyone lack wisdom? Ask God. Okay, James, that's great. Why are we doing this? So we are allowed to ask God for wisdom, and then he gives wisdom generously. Let's talk about what that means. When he says that God gives wisdom, ask for wisdom and you'll receive it. Remember, he's not talking about fame. He's not talking about wealth. He's not talking about power. He's not talking about even healing in this passage. What James is talking about in this passage is that when we say, God, can you give me wisdom? God gives it more, over and abundant. More than we can ever use, God is willing to give us wisdom. God wants us to be wise. And this word is Sophia. I want to put that up in the Greek. That's Sophia. Say that. It's a beautiful, beautiful word. It's wisdom. It's deep. It's got roots in the Hebrew word of chokhmah, which at some point we may be able to talk about what that means. But do we want wisdom? With wisdom, do we really want it? Do we really need it? Why would he say, if anyone lacks wisdom, ask God? Do we want it? Do we need it? Yes! Yes, we do! This wisdom is good. Why would we want it? Why would we need it? See, in Proverbs, wisdom is supreme. Wisdom is key. It's the greatest good. It's part of God himself. It's creating beside God in Proverbs chapter 9. It creates beside him. It's mystery and wonder. It's worth more than all the jewels. It's worth more than anything that we could desire. Wisdom in the Bible, from Proverbs all the way to James, it's the ability to know the right thing to do and the ability to do the right thing when we know it. Okay, let's hear that again. Wisdom is the ability to know the right thing to do, and to do the right thing when we know it. It's not just about what we have going on between our ears, in our gray matter, what's happening in our it's not the firing of neurons in our prefrontal cortex. It's not thoughts. It's not just that. It's what our hands do. Those people who were skilled at crafts, they were wise with their crafts. Those people who were able to discern the times, they were wise in knowing how to lead. And that's what's happening here in James. It's not just knowing the right thing, or having a bunch of knowledge, but being able to do the right thing when we know it. Both right understanding and right action are taken together. A wise person has both, and that's a good way to be. And so why does James bring it up here after we just talked about trials? We just talked about tribulations. We just talked about suffering. Why does James bring it up here? I believe James is trying to discuss more about wisdom while undergoing trials and temptations. If you are undergoing trials and you can't consider it joy, when you're undergoing trials and you can't look at it and go, this is a joy to me, we ask for wisdom, and wisdom will help change our outlook on the situation. It'll let us have an understanding of what's going on. It'll put your mind in the right place. If we're undergoing trials and we can't endure, the endurance is not developing within us. We want to turn away. We want to run away. We want to disobey. We want to disavow God because our trials are so great. Wisdom will help you know the right action to take. It's not just about being able to say, I look at my situation and I see that it's a joy to me. It's how do I live in the midst of this? That's why he says, ask for wisdom and God will give it in abundance. He'll make it easier. It's not going to be easy, but he'll make it easier. So this wisdom puts us in a place where we can understand God, understand our situation, and we can act appropriately to it. And it says God will give to those who do not doubt. But then what kind of doubt? Okay, so I want to have it. But if I doubt, what does that mean? I want to have this wisdom. The question then is not, it's the question of doubt versus disbelief. Doubt is a tough word because what we have here is, what are we doubting? It's not that we have to have every single idea about Christianity set in stone right in our minds without any questions at all, and then God will give us wisdom. It's that we have to say, when I ask for wisdom, I believe God's going to give it to me. When I ask for wisdom, I believe God's going to do what he says. That doesn't mean that we don't have questions. I have lots of questions all the time about faith. I have lots of questions about what's happening in the early parts of the text. What's going on in Genesis 1 through 11? What does that mean? What's going on when Jesus walks on the water? Is there a scientific explanation, or does just science overturn? I'm okay if it does, but the question's still there. What happens? What's going on in Revelation? Are we going to actually see dragons? Super cool, totally scary. Is it a metaphor? Has it already happened? Will it happen again? All those questions are in my mind. But the point is not that those are doubts. Those are questions. Maybe they are. You can call them doubts. But when God says, I'll give you wisdom if you believe me, I say, okay, God, I believe you. Give me wisdom. I trust you're going to do it. I don't understand everything, and I never will, as much as that bothers me as a person. I won't understand everything. But when you say you'll give me wisdom, I believe you're going to do it. That's what we're talking about here. Don't you want that in your life? Don't you want to be able to say, I want to understand this situation. I want to understand this stuff. God, can you give me wisdom? Doubt in this situation would be disbelief. Asking for wisdom and then going, but God will never make me wise. When you're asking for wisdom, you say, God, I want wisdom, but in the back of your mind you're going, God will never make me wise. What you're saying is God's not going to do what God says he's going to do. That's the kind of disbelief that I think James is saying. Don't be like that. That's a raging sea. That's an indecisive, double-minded person. Don't do that. Trust that God is going to do what God says he's going to do. So facing trials causes you to develop endurance and become mature. Wisdom, which God will give when you ask, can change your outlook and actions to understand trials as joy. That doesn't mean trials easier, but it does mean that there can be good that comes out of them. So I want you to go back to the thing that you thought of in the beginning. I want you to think about the trial that you thought of. I didn't ask that just because, okay, so if you didn't actually think of one when I said that, go back and now think, what's the trial? Are you going through something right now? Are you going to go through something in the future? Do you know that something's coming up? A job loss? Did you go through pain as a child? Has someone hurt you in the recent past? Or hurt someone that you love? And are you suffering the consequences of that situation? What is it for you? What's the pain? Think about the trial, and then ask the question, can I see it as joy? If you can't, you're not doing something wrong. It's not easy. It took Joseph years. And when you look at the story of Joseph, he's a great example of this. It took him years. His brothers took him, and they threw him in a pit. When they drug him out, they sold him into slavery. He was in slavery, and his master's wife lied about him, and then he got thrown into a prison. And yet, then he got put into the highest place in the kingdom. And all through it, he said, I'm not going to curse God. I'm not going to turn away from him. And instead, he said, what you intended for evil, God intended for good. I don't know if Joseph was saying that in the middle of his time being a slave. I don't know about when he first got thrown into the prison, if he was saying, God intends this for good. Man, this is a good, joyful time. Instead, he said, at the end of his life, later on, after he had had wisdom poured into him by God, he said, I can see this as a joy. In my own life, I'm not happy about what happened to me as a child. When I lost my mom and then my grandma and my dad in 3 months. I'm not happy about that. That wasn't a good thing. But God took a situation and He used it for His good. He turned it around. He said, I'm not going to let a broken kid stay broken. I'm going to make a church be the church. They're going to have to function as that. And they did. They met up to the challenge. So what is it for you? It's not going to be easy, and I'm not saying it is. But what is it for you? This week, I'm going to give you another crazy application. Still, read the book of James. But at some point this week, take that time of pain, that trial, that temptation, that trouble, and write it down somewhere. Actually put it out onto paper. Take the time, not write it down in a note on your app. I want you to take the time to get pen and paper, or pencil and paper, and write down what you went through. Don't have to show it to anybody. Keep it to yourself. But write down exactly what you felt. All the pain, all the hurt. Get it out. Let it be a prayer. Let it be a lamentation to God. The Psalms are full of anger and angst, and let it flow out. Let it come out of you, and write it down. And then at the end of it, write joy with a question mark. It doesn't mean that the situation was good. It doesn't give anyone who hurt you a pass, saying that they didn't do anything wrong. What it does ask of you, and it will ask of me, I'm not doing these things without you. I'm right there with you. When I'm asking you to do something, I'm doing it myself. What it does ask is, you're asking, can God take the terrible, the painful, the hard things of my life and make them something beautiful? Can God make my life wonderful and amazing, even when the world, humanity, or Satan may be at his worst? I want you to do that this week. As the band gets ready to play our last song, I want you to pray, God, can you help me see the trials, the temptations, and the troubles, that you're going to make them work out for good. Not that they're good, not that the troubles themselves are good, but what you do in spite of them are. If you need help with that, I'd love to talk to you about what that would look like. How to see them as a way that produced endurance in you. Or ask, how do I get more wisdom from that situation? Let's sing.